Hello, it's Rebecca from Precious Pages Papercraft, and today I am designing a layout for Peartree Cutfiles. I'm using the Mistletoe Kisses cut file and also the Mistletoe file that were both part of the November release. So it's still available in the shop to purchase either as a download or as a pre-cut file if you don't have your own cutting machine. This is another one of Marie's cut files where as soon as I saw it I fell in love with it, but I had so many different ideas on what I wanted to do with it that I've taken some time to come up with a plan. And at the time of starting this layout I had a really clear image in my head of how I wanted it to look, and it actually came out pretty close, so I'm really impressed with how my idea managed to translate onto the page. So I'm starting off by painting the outside of all the letters with this is a Cosmic Shimmer iridescent watercolour paint. They're like my favourite thing to use at the moment, they're really shimmery. This colour here is called Golden Pear, and I've just skipped through that so you don't have to watch everything, but I've painted the outer edge of all the letters. Now I'm coming back in with my second shade of green. This one's called Golden Malachite and it's a bit darker, and I'm using that to paint all of the mistletoe. And again, this is very shimmery. This one has kind of like a golden shimmer to it. It's almost like it's a green paint with golden glitter ground up in it. You can't really see it at the moment with me painting on video, but you can see in the close-ups at the end all the shimmer and the different tones that these paints have. So I've painted all of the mistletoe. Initially I'd left the berries because I was going to paint them red, but my good friend Google informed me that the berries are actually white, so I left the red off. And I just had to go back there and do the middle of my O. And here's where I bring in the mistletoe cut file. So it's pretty much the same as the mistletoe hanging from the title, but it's got a bow and a ribbon tied around the top, which I paint red. So that is phase one of my idea formulated. Moving on to phase two, which was to add glitter to my mistletoe. So the outer edge of my mistletoe here, I have added PVA glue all the way around it and sprinkled a green glitter. It's kind of like a green and white iridescent glitter all the way around it. Now this didn't stick as well as I'd hoped it would, but you definitely can see the glitter when you look at the layout in person. And I'm not too worried that it didn't come out as well as I'd planned, because I'm also going to add glitter to all the letters, so there is still going to be enough sparkle on the page at the end of it. So it's just added a very subtle layer of glitter there. And at this point I was still trying to decide if I was going to use that second mistletoe sprig or not. You'll see me bring it in and take it back out several times before I decide to actually keep it on the layout. So I'm pulling all of the letters off of my craft mat. As I mentioned, I'm going to coat these with glitter as well. Now this was one of the first ideas I had for this layout, and it was inspired by a artificial sprig of mistletoe we've got at home. You can actually see it in the top of the photo I'm putting on this layout, but it's lovely different shades of green, but it's got like a white frosting and glitter all over it, and it just looks so pretty, so I wanted to try and recreate that on my layout. So I'm just coating all of my letters with PVA glue, and I'm just using a paintbrush to coat it evenly. I'm pouring a white iridescent glitter over them, and I've just set them aside to dry. And now I need to focus on the actual leaves that will sit in my mistletoe. So I wanted these to be slightly darker than the shade I'd painted the outline of the leaves. So I'm using a distress ink in Pine Needles, which is a darker green, but I'm also mixing in some of the Golden Malachite iridescent watercolour paint, and also another shimmery watercolour paint, which is that one's called Enchanted Gold, that shade. So I've just mixed the three together so that the colour is totally different to what I've painted the outside of the leaves. And I also come in and do the second cut file at the same time because I'm still undecided if I'll use it or not. It just saves me having to go back through this process when I do decide to use it. So again, just mixing the three different inks and paints there and just painting it directly onto my cut file. I've not used any gesso for these, for anything on this layout in fact. I'm not adding a massive amount of water, so I didn't feel like it needed it. So the paint is going directly onto my cardstock. And I'm just going to use my fingers here just with some of the pine needles distress ink just to add some darker shading to all the leaves, just to make it a bit more realistic with different areas of interest and shading. And once that's done, again I pop it aside to dry naturally, and I'm just bringing my cut file back in here just to see where I want things to sit and marking a rough outline edge with a pencil so that I can add some mixed media to my background cardstock. I've used a basil textured cardstock for when I cut my cut file, but for my background cardstock I'm just using smooth white cardstock, and like I said, there's no gesso on this page. I'm not adding an awful lot of water, so I didn't feel that it needed it. And for the colours on my background, I wanted something similar to what I'd used for my mistletoe, but also different enough that it kind of stood out. So I'm using the pine needles distress ink again, but I'm also mixing it with some Stormy Sky, which is kind of like a navy blue colour. And I'm not completely coating my background, I want to leave some white areas in. And I love the effect this gives when you don't use too much water, because it almost creates what looks like paint splatters without actually adding paint splatters to the edge. It's just one less step I have to do. I just really like the effect it gives when it's patchy like this. So because there's no shimmer in my background paints, I'm just soaking the excess up with a kitchen towel there and just coming back in to see how this is going to look. So once my background is completely dry, I come back in with my gold Heidi Swap Colour Shine and a paintbrush and just add some gold paint splatters all over my background. I wanted to bring some gold in because in my photo there are some gold baubles on the small Christmas tree, and there's also some warm white LED lights in the background which kind of look like a golden colour in the photo. So I definitely wanted to get some gold on the page. So now I'm happy with my background, it's a case of just sticking my cut file down. So I'm sticking the outside part of my cut file flat, just using tacky glue, and I just work at it one side at a time, using my T-square ruler just to make sure that it's all straight. And once I've got one side done, I turn my page and stick the other side down. I find this works a lot better for me rather than coating the entire back of the cut file with glue and then trying to paste it down, because I can guarantee I'll end up dropping it or a bit will hit the page that I'm not ready and I end up with glue all over my background. So I just stick it down bit by bit, and then I'm going to come in with my O there as a template just to add the centre part in. And there we have it. Now it's not very easy to see at the moment, especially on camera where that green paint is quite shimmery, but once the letters are added back in, it's much clearer to see. And I'm just using foam pads behind each of the letters to raise those up off the page to add a bit more dimension, and it gives a lovely shadowed effect behind the letters, which I really love doing with cut files. And there we go, that's all my letters in, and I've also added in all the leaves and berries for the mistletoe that hangs underneath my title. So now onto my photo, I'm adding a layer of, it's kind of like a craft colour, just using a paper bag that we got from our local garden centre when we bought a tree ornament recently. I felt like the colour worked really well with the layout, so I don't bin anything these days, everything gets kept for scrapbooking. And I'm adding a layer of patterned paper behind that. I think that was a crepe paper, patterned paper. And there's a lot of red in my photo on my little boy's top and on the snowman hat and some red baubles on the tree. So I felt like I needed to get some more red onto my layout. So I've added a second layer of patterned paper in a red colour and just used my scissors to distress all the edges there. And I'm still trying to decide at this point whether I want that second sprig of mistletoe in or whether it's going to make my page look too busy. It's a bit of a in out, shake it all about moment with this one because it takes me forever to decide that I actually do want to use it. I'm just bringing everything back in to have a look to see how happy I am with it. And I'm still not sure, so it goes again, and I'm sure it comes back in again, and I'm not sure, so I grabbed some Skittles. My scrapbooking snack of choice is Skittles. They don't leave my fingers messy like chocolate, so no danger of getting any mess on my layout. So I skipped my video forward a bit here because I faffed for a very long time over my embellishments and whether or not to include that second mistletoe. I fussy cut some florals out of a Cartabella patterned paper. Also a tag there from the same collection. And I've also brought in some ephemera pieces from the Simple Stories Jingle All The Way collection. I felt like the greens and reds worked really well, but I was so undecided that I turned the camera off for a little bit to have a play and then came back in when I was nearer to making a decision. So I've added a puffy poinsettia over to the left there next to the word kisses. That's from the Simple Stories Jingle All The Way. And that was mainly because there was a part of the cut file that during the painting process I misplaced. So that flower covers that up really nicely. And finally, I've made a decision on the mistletoe and it is going to make it onto the layout. So I'm now just sticking that down before I commit to any embellishments. So again, I've stuck the outer edge of the cut file down flat, but I'm raising the leaves and berries up onto foam pads. I'm only going to replace the leaves on the right hand side of the cut file though, because the left hand side will be hidden by my photo, so it was a bit pointless adding those in when they're going to be covered up. I'm adding a layer of craft foam behind my photo to raise that up from my page. That's now raised up. And because I've got a few layers of cardstock behind it, or patterned paper as well, it just raises that up just slightly more than the letters in my cut file. And just helps to make my photo more of a focal point on the layout. I've got this tag here which I cut from a piece of Cartabella patterned paper. It's got mistletoe on it, so I've decided that rather than use the tag as a whole piece, I'm going to fussy cut the mistletoe out and just place it on the top left corner of my photo. I've never really been one for enjoying fussy cutting. Loads of people love it and I've never understood why, but I recently bought these Cutter-bee scissors and my goodness, it makes such a difference having a decent pair of scissors. I actually really enjoy it fussy cutting now, and if I can use these scissors to cut anything, I do, because they just cut through anything like butter. They're really nice to use. So you'll see me fussy cutting a lot more in the future, I think. So I've decided that the puffy poinsettia that I had at the top there was the wrong shade of red. It was a bit brighter than the ephemera pieces. And because I was going to use an ephemera piece on the bottom right corner of my photo, I wanted the reds to match. So I've just replaced that with a fussy cut one from the same collection, and I'm adding a tangle of gold thread behind it there, and I'll also add a couple more gold tangles, one to the right of my photo. I'm going to add one underneath my photo too. And that just brings in a little bit more of the gold tones, as I've used the Heidi Swap colour shine on the background as well. And here I've decided my berries on my mistletoe, I had, sorry, not embossed, I'd done the same as what I'd done with my cut file. I'd covered them with white glitter, but I decided I wanted something a bit more shiny. So I'm using a pearlescent white, I don't actually think this is a Nouveau drop, let me check. Oh, no, I lie, it is a Nouveau drop, and it's called Ivory Seashell. And it's got that gorgeous pearlescent effect that you get on the inside of seashells. So I've gone over all of my berries with that. And then I decided I wanted to add a frame on my layout after smothering my berries with Nouveau drops, so I had to be really careful here. I've trimmed each side of my layout down by 1/4 of an inch, and I'm just going to add this pattern paper behind it. I think that is from a Simple Stories Christmas collection. I'll double check the name of it and add it in the description box below, but I felt like it matched really well with my photo, because the Christmas tree on the left of the photo is a really dark green colour, but it's got white, gold, red and green baubles on it, so this paper had all of those shades in it. And I thought it was just a perfect match. So once I'd trimmed my layout down, I've distressed all of the edges with scissors, and I've stuck my page to my frame. If I'd known I was going to do this at the start of the layout, I would have moved my cut file over a bit, because now my letters aren't very central, and that is going to bug me, but nothing I can do about it now. And that is my finished layout. So thank you very much for joining me. Like I said, both of these cut files are available in the store. If you're not a member of the Peartree Cutfiles group on Facebook, please do head over and join, because you'll get loads of inspiration from the group, and if you've got any questions, there's always people on hand to answer them for you. So thank you very much for joining me, and I'll leave you with the rest of the close-ups.